Hello YouTube, Jerry Kirkpatrick here, and before we get started in the meat of this video, I would like to thank very much Alan for a generous donation that he made through PayPal. With that donation, I was able to buy all of the fittings for an upcoming video, and also a wire brush that I purchased from McMaster Carr that we'll be seeing a little bit later in this video. Just like last time, after I read the comments from my last video, there was one that stood out, and I would have made this modification, but I think I'm going to wait and see how often it would be used. It's not something I ever thought about, but as I use the Bead Blaster more, I will see if it would be a modification that would merit it being done to my machine here. And what I saw from Chuck Bommarino from Outsidescrewball, you can see a link to his channel below. He mentioned that he had seen somewhere a hands-free attachment that others have put on their bead blasters, and if you go to his channel, you'll see a prototype that he has made to his machine. So after getting the bead blaster back here in the corner, the first thing I had to do was hook up the dryer and regulator. As soon as I hooked it up, it's from Harbor Freight. The first thing I had to do was get rid of the regulator. You push on the pedal, when you let up, it would go right to the whatever the line pressure is, step on the pedal, and it would come back down to whatever it wanted to be at. So I got rid of that, got a better regulator, hooked it up. It still comes up to about 80 pounds. I want it to be set at like 50 pounds, which is where I have it set at. It'll come up to 80. As soon as you hit the pedal, it comes right down to 55, so I'm going to use it for a while. The regulator that came on the dryer, I just took some parts and threw the thing away. There was a washer in there, a rubber washer, that would fall and allow the air to leak by. And I didn't mind throwing it away at all, because I got a new machinist jack out of the deal. And every time I scrap a regulator, I always keep this portion, and they make fantastic machinist jacks for the mill. So the only thing that I did prior to putting this back in the corner here was I siliconed all the way around the inside of the glass, where the glass met the metallic frame. I could see that there was a void between the rubber and the frame, and I knew that was just going to fill up with sand, so I siliconed that, and I've used it a couple of times, and it's great. There's no sand that gets in between the glass and the frame, so that's working good. I did get a new pair of gloves and a new nozzle, and I think those two things will help with the usage of the Bead Blaster for a while anyway. So one thing that really turned out great is I used to use the plastic shields that you could buy in a tube from Harbor Freight. After thinking about it for a little while, what I'm using is the heat shrink material that I used to put my t-shirts and blacksmithing products in. And it turns out to be quite good. It's the proper width for the door. All I have to do is cut it to the proper height. So let me show you the material that I'm talking about. So I'm sure you've seen these things where you put a product in between the plastic and then push the handle down. It heats a Inconel strip and you can pull it off. Well, just before I sold my blacksmithing business, I had just purchased a whole roll of this stuff. So all I have to do is the length has to be like 15 inches. So I set the line where the material is cut off 15 inches from the end. So I can pull the material out, get this as flat as possible. Don't forget to turn the machine on. And there you go. A brand new shield. So I've already cut 20 of these and we'll see how long that takes. So I'm going to get this thing back out into the shed. But first I'm going to take the heat gun and shrink the plastic. You can see it's somewhat bent. So I'll take the heat gun, heat the glass or the plastic, it'll tighten up and it'll be a perfect view through this plastic. So as I said earlier, I'm only using like 50 to 60 pounds of pressure in the cabinet on the gun. And the media that I'm using is a 80 grit garnet. And I get this along with the gloves and just everything from Tacoma company, and you'll find a link to that in the description. But that's only half of what I do for preparing a piece to nickel plate. The first thing I do is blast it with the 80 grit garnet. Here's a piece that's all rusty, as you can see. I bead blast it, and then I use a wire brush with 06, 6/1000 wire. So let me get this piece blasted, and then I'll meet you over by my wire wheel, and we'll see what the difference is between blasting as is and then after wire brushing with a very fine wire brush. So here's the piece after it's been sandblasted, and you can see it's pretty dull. So, and that's with 80 grit, so that's pretty fine. So let me get this wire brushed and I'll show you what it looks like after we use a wire brush with 6/1000 of an inch wires. So there you go. There's the difference. There's after being wire brushed, and there's before being wire brushed. So if you have a piece that you want almost polished, you can use your 80 grit garnet at 50 to 60 pounds of pressure, and then use a wire brush with 6/1000 bristles. This is what you're going to wind up with. And I have a link to this wire brush from McMaster Carr down in the description below. If you watch my next video, you will see how I'm going to be using these. Actually, I have two tubes that I just bead blasted and then wire brushed. They'll become the manifolds for the air over by my mill and lathe. So be sure to watch my next video. You'll see these being made and installed. So thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. I'd love to have a cup of coffee. Thanks again for watching. If I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next video.